Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Jesse here, Mr. Solo. I'm a much calmer dude in the morning, I realize. I'm a lot less animated. I'm going to do a series called Dungeon Meditations. But that's not what this video is about. This video is a response. It's a video response to my own video, because that's the narcissistic day and age we're living in. I'm doing video responses to my own videos, because really the reality is we're all just a bunch of idiots on the internet with hot takes. And you get to absorb whatever hot takes you find value in, and you can discard the rest. And so if you don't like these takes, feel free to comment and discard them. I don't really care. What I do care about is sharing some of these things that I've learned, because I love this game that we play, and I want your games to be awesome too. And so I hope somebody watches this video and goes, wow, aha moment, I'm going to take this to my next game, and I'm going to see if this guy knows what he's talking about, or if he's just full of coffee. I'm guilty of being a conceptualist. I get excited about a concept, and I think I'm articulating it well, and then I realize later I haven't given a practical example. And so today I want to slow it down a little bit and better articulate that concept of the dungeon master asking their players, what do you want to do? And then give a very practical example of how it can be an absolute game changer. So for this example, we'll use the dungeon, the classic dungeon, but the dungeon can be a metaphor for your adventure, whatever adventure that you've devised for your players. And so let's begin with this. Instead of dragging your players through each room of your dungeon and ultimately to the next conflict and the next conflict, start placing metaphorical and physical barriers. A door, the classic door, is a great example, because when your players arrive at the door, whether it's a metaphorical door or a physical door, you have to ask your players, what do you want to do? This helps build tension, and it teaches your players that their actions are ultimately responsible for progressing the action, not the dungeon masters. The players' actions will determine where your adventure goes. Because if players are constantly being dragged along and prodded and railroaded, it creates an environment where the players and characters become lazy, apathetic adventurers with an expectation that the DM is responsible for progressing the adventure. Now that's a lot of pressure to put on the DM and the players. It promotes a game style where, besides killing stuff that is put in front of them and doing what is asked of them, the players are not otherwise all that engaged or invested. They're constantly waiting, because we've set up an expectation that the dungeon master is just going to prod them along and the DM will take care of it. Just let us know when to roll dice. And even if you're running a more linear adventure or a module, as opposed to an open world sandbox, you can still create the illusion of choice by immersing the players in the environment and then presenting them with multiple choices. Even if all those choices eventually lead to the same destination, you're giving your players agency, and you are asking them, what do you want to do? In the background, there's a horse, and that horse's name is Mr. Gary. We'll talk about Mr. Gary in a moment, but the only reason I know that is because I asked my players, what do you want to do? Let's say that a neighboring kingdom is under attack by orc raiders, and that they have taken the king's daughter hostage, and a rider travels 24 miles to the next hex, and they are asking for help. Now, instead of assuming that the adventurers will help and teleporting your characters to the conflict for an awesome and epic battle against the orc horde and its chief, where they are ultimately victorious in saving the princess and are rewarded with unfathomable riches. Which is great and awesome. It sounds fun. I'm interested. Let's do it. Let's roll some dice. But try asking your players, when they're asked if they will help, what do you want to do? Maybe they'll say no, but almost certainly they will say yes. And when they do, also ask them, how will you get there? And will you look for an outfitter and buy a horse? And will you name this horse? And what is the horse's name? And what color is this horse? And when they answer that, yes, they will look into buying a horse, and that the horse is as black as midnight on a moonless night, and that the horse's name is Mr. Gary, and that Mr. Gary was a good horse that rode like the wind, ultimately bringing the adventurer 24 miles to rescue the king's daughter, ultimately being cut down in battle by vicious orcs before its rider rose to fight through the horde with a newfound vengeance. Not only will they remember the awesome and epic battle against the orc horde and its chieftain, but they will also remember that Mr. Gary, the bravest horse of them all, who was black as midnight on a moonless night, that rode like the wind. Mr. Gary, of whom without the king's daughter would have never been rescued, nor unfathomable fortune and glory gained. They will remember not only the battle, but the journey. And they will remember their choices and actions that you gave them, that you presented them with. Their choices and actions that led to the legendary rescue of King Alfred's daughter at Castle Darkmoor. And they will remember their beloved horse that was cut down in battle, Mr. Gary. And perhaps they will even shed a tear several years later, as they remember one of the most amazing adventures ever known to any adventurer, all because you asked them, what do you want to do? Instead of saying, okay, so you arrive at the neighboring kingdom and the orcs are attacking, roll initiative. Which is still awesome. And that gets me excited. I want to play in this adventure, but the former is way more epic, engaging, and memorable than the latter. The former presented the players with a question, and they had to answer that question. What will they do? And sometimes they might need some help. You might say, well, we want to rescue the princess. And you say, okay, great, but how are you going to get there? Oh, we're going to walk. Okay, you can walk, but it's 20. And another player might go, no, let's get a horse. Okay, are there places where we can buy a horse? And you, the dungeon master, say, why, yes, there is. Will you name this horse? Yeah, Mr. Gary seems like a good name. I'm telling you right now, Mr. Gary is what they're going to remember from this adventure, right? Several years later, they're going to be in bed and they're going to wake up in the middle of the night and be like, Mr. Gary, it was cut down in battle and I rose to avenge his death. So I hope this helps articulate some of the nuances of how what do you want to do can absolutely be a game changer for your role-playing game, your Dungeons & Dragons experience. So hey, have a great weekend. I will see you soon. And remember, you must gather your party before venturing forth, unless you're playing solo.